good. I guess I draw the short end of the stick to be the first presenter. So if I do a good job, the bar is high. If I screw up, then my colleague will have a small feeling. Thank you very much, Paris, for the Minister of Finance and Strategy of the South Korean government, but also for Iowa University for hosting this prestigious event. Really happy to be here. I'm just gonna give you a little bit brief background about the African Development Bank, also about some of the challenges that we're facing in Africa in general, also some of our strategic objectives, as well as what are we looking for with regard to career opportunities and qualifications, etc. But also how can you engage with us in the future. Just a little bit of background. The African Development Bank, the Paris Agreement was signed in 1963, but it went into effect in 1964. And again, it was part of the post-colonial agenda about the development in Africa. And a few of the leaders at the time got together and thought about, okay, we gained our independence, now what? So the idea was the development in Africa by African for Africans, and that was the initial idea. However, that idea was developed further by the inclusion of non-African regional member countries, sometimes in 1972. Our headquarters is based in Abidjan, Cote d'Ivoire. However, around 2003, the African Development Bank has moved temporarily to Tunisia because of the instability in the country of Cote d'Ivoire at the time. Since January 2004, we start moving back to Cote d'Ivoire, and now we are in the process of doing so. We are moving about 2,000 staff, families, total of 5,000 staff from Tunisia to Cote d'Ivoire. So you can imagine the massive effort that's put into this. As a result, again, it's bad news, good news. We froze the recruitment process for the African Development Bank for the year 2004. However, the good news gave us an opportunity to plan better and to look forward to 2015 and going forward with our new strategic and resourcing strategy around that. Generally, in a nutshell, the objective of the African Development Bank is the alleviation of poverty within Africa. It's a very broad concept. Again, provides us with an opportunity to get into various projects from the operation, technical, and also from the kind of philosophical side of it. Also, to ensure that at least the technical expertise that is needed for the development and the economies in African countries is provided, as well as the finance needed for the development of those projects. This is just an overview about where are we located right now. This is the beautiful city of Cote d'Ivoire, again, after a few years of instability. The headquarters is a photo in the bottom here, and is located somewhere in the concrete jungle, the photo to the left. However, temporarily right now we're hosted by the government of Cote d'Ivoire in the International Trade Center building, which is the tallest building in Cote d'Ivoire, which is the one in the dark photo here in the middle. Currently, we have about 1,000 staff already moved into that building, and we're expecting about 1,400 more right now. This is just an example of some of the development projects in Africa. And again, a lot of time when we move to Cote d'Ivoire, people will approach us and ask us, can you finance my kiosk, for example? Can you finance my grocery store? And we told them, no, actually the African Development Bank is the bank for governments. And therefore, it's larger kind of infrastructure projects. And that is the easiest way to kind of to explain it for the average, I guess, Ivorian industry. So dams, hydropower projects, agricultural projects, education, human development, you name it. Who are we? Again, it has three distinct institutions within the African Development Group. There is the African Development Bank, which is all of the African countries, currently 53 countries who are members. And then we have the Nigerian Trust Fund. After the discovery of oil in Nigeria, early 70s, Nigeria decided to allocate certain funds for development in Africa. However, they did not want to compete with the African Development Bank, and therefore they created Nigerian Trust Fund, which is a member of the African Development Bank. The inclusion of the non-African countries happened in the early 1970s, and these are basically countries that are not based in Africa. And in Asia, we have 4 of them. We have China, India, Japan, and South Korea. We are located in about 35 different field offices. We have 2 regional offices, one in Nairobi, one in South Africa. Temporary headquarters in Tunisia, and the headquarters in Abidjan, Cote d'Ivoire. So we cover basically most of the African countries within our region. Sorry, I'm going a little bit fast, but I'll be happy to ask any questions and give you responses in the afternoon. Some of the key challenges, and again, Africa is one of the richest continents, however, also there's a lot of other issues. Disasters, basically man-made, and also some natural disasters. And again, talking about floods, talking about drought, talking about also strife of instability, civil wars, etc. But also climate change, environmental degradation, and issues around extractives, etc. One of the biggest challenges as well is the inequality between men and women. So we're very pleased to be here at a women's university in Asia, so that's an inspiration for us as well. Also, some of the challenges we have is the shortage of skills, and again, capacity. Also, the private sector is a little bit weak, so therefore engagement in development is a bit of a challenge. As well, one of the biggest issues is the issues around governance within the African content. Again, political reforms, issues around corruption, about stability, institution and governments, and so forth. So these are all of the challenges that we're facing. As a result of that, the ADB created a new strategy, 10-year strategy, starting 2012 up to 2022. And the rest is about 5 major areas. The first one, again, we're talking about the infrastructure development is in Africa. We're looking at regional integration, looking at private sector development, governance and accountability, and also skills and technology. However, there are overarching themes around that, which is around the gradual and inclusive growth, which is 2 concepts around the environmental issues that we need to address. But also there is the issue around fragile states, issues around agriculture and food security. But also another very important overarching principle is the gender aspect of it. As a matter of fact, we have a new gender strategy that's been established early this year. And the commitment is all projects, finance projects, unless they clearly outline the impact of the gender within the African content, they are not going to be approved by the law. And that's a commitment that we made. Career opportunities with ADB. Again, just before the career opportunities, just the background. We have also a people strategy, which has a focus about leadership, performance and accountability, employee engagement and communication, and the workforce of the future. Again, the workforce of the future, again, we're not looking at age per se, but the engagement in future development and the issues about the skills development, the technology, etc., but also policies that are designed to ensure that we diversify our workforce within the context of the development. The environment is excellent. Again, a very diversified workforce, as I mentioned, international competitive package, contribution to professional development and ongoing development, of course. Reforms to improve benefits and career development and promotion. As we speak, we are looking at a new compensation framework to attract the best as well, and we're using the 5 international financial institutions as our competitors. Also, we're looking at that, at reforming the labor force and restructuring, and look at more decentralization in the process. So the workforce, I guess location is not going to be just Cote d'Ivoire, but again, we're looking at the 75 countries within Africa. These are just general examples of some of the jobs and some of the areas, the skills that we're looking at. Again, if you look at the Office of the Chief Economist, statisticians, again, researchers, we look at the operations in different areas, procurement, fiduciary services, look at sector operation, financial reform, human development, water and sanitation, institutional issues such as corporate services, HR, IT, general services. We look at language services because ADB is fully bilingual, English and French, so language is very critical for us. We're looking, of course, the finance side, treasury, financial control, resource mobilization, external relations. Also, we look at infrastructure and private sector operations, transport, communication, water and sanitation, regional integration, trade. So it's a very wide variety of background that we are looking for. It's very important to keep that in mind when we are applying and when we look at career opportunities with the ADB. How to get in touch with us and what are the opportunities we will be looking at. We have 3 categories of staff. Again, we look at the international professionals, we have local professionals, and general support staff. The international professionals, again, we're looking at international staff from all of the 78 member countries. Minimum criteria, we're looking at master's degree at a minimum for inclusion, for applying to the ADB. We have also a young professional program which it could be very suitable for some of you here in the room. And the young professional program requires a master's degree, about 3 years of experience, and then there is an age limit of 32. It's a very competitive program. Last time we had an intake, we had about 8,000 applications, and we take only 20 staff, young professionals. So if you apply and you did not get it, don't feel bad because it's a very tough competition. Also, we have secondment, technical advisors and technical assistants from government and also project staff we hire in the international market. Also, we recruit consultants, different degrees and different expertise of backgrounds, senior consultants, more than 10 years, and junior consultants, about 5 years or so. As well, we provide internship programs, and again, we take about between 60 interns every year. However, we have an agreement with the government of South Korea. There is a special Korean internship program, and we're very proud that that has been going very successfully. And actually, part of my mission here, I'm going to interview a few of the candidates for the Korean internship program. Good luck on that process. General statistics, currently there are about 9 Koreans working for the bank, again from a complement of over 2,000 staff. The rest of the complement of the people working for the ADB are consultants, as well as what we call them short-term staff engagements. We recruit this locally, as well as some of the kind of service providers. But generally speaking, it's about 2,000 staff. As I mentioned, in order to join the ADB, you have to be a member, your country has to be a member of the African Development Bank. As I mentioned, South Korea is a member of the African Development Bank, and therefore you will be very welcome to apply. Minimum master's degree, as I mentioned. And we have, again, headquartered in Cote d'Ivoire, but also in the field offices. We have certified field offices throughout Africa, and 2 regional centers, currently in Nairobi and 1 in South Africa. The website link provides you with more information, but I will be available this afternoon. I understand there is a question and answer session, and to give you more in-depth information for whatever you need. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you this morning, and I would have to echo the Deputy Minister's opening remarks where he said it makes you feel young to be here on this campus. My partner and I, Shining Jia, who is also a principal at the Asian Development Bank, wandered around the campus this morning, and we were both saying to ourselves, wouldn't it be great after retirement to be able to come back to a university environment where there's knowledge? You can feel it. It's in the air here. And we're so very happy to be a part of this, Madam President, her opening remarks this morning. And so thank you so much. As the MC mentioned, my name is Albert Atkinson. I'm a Principal Human Resources Business Partner at the Asian Development Bank. I have been at ADB now for 10.5 years. I've been in Asia now for half of my life. I won't say what that number is, but I'm 51 years old, so we can do the math on that. So Asia is very much my home. I come from the United States, originally from Texas. And so this is having said all of that, this is my very first visit to Korea, except for the airport numerous times. But it's very good to be a guest here in your country. Thank you so much. To start my talk this morning, or my brief talk, I just want to remind you that there is indeed an opportunity to learn more about the Asian Development Bank this afternoon. I realize that not all of you will be able to attend that session, but we will in that session go into more depth on the Asian Development Bank, our recruitment practices, and the type of staff we're looking for. But this morning, in the 10 minutes that I do have, I hope I can give you a good overview. And if you can't visit with us later this afternoon, then I'll provide you at the end of this brief presentation with some links on the internet where you can find out more about us if you would like to pursue a career with the Asian Development Bank. So just to start, I would like to talk about the mission of the bank, which is really to reduce poverty in the Asia Pacific. And let's see if I can get this to go forward. The vision is really about an Asia Pacific free of poverty. And our mission, essentially, let's see if we can get this to go the right way. Hey, look at that, it's the other way. Okay. Our mission is really to help our developing member countries reduce poverty and overall improve the quality of life. That's essentially what it's about, because working in the Asia Pacific region as a development institution that has really been in place since 1966, we realize that even today that over 1 billion people live in the region on less than $2 a day. So it's amazing when you think about the mandate of a development organization within this region and the kind of impact you can make by coming to work for an organization like ours in the Asia region or in an organization like the African Development Bank in Africa. And so there's just a huge opportunity to feel self-actualized, I believe, to work in an organization like an international financial institution. We have 67 member countries right now. 48 of those countries are within Asia, within the region, and we have 41 borrowing member countries. Our two primary donors are Japan and the United States. The headquarters office in Manila is located in an area that 25 years ago was a green field. It's amazing. How many of you have actually been to Manila, Philippines? Gosh, not many of you. You know, if you've ever seen any of our television advertisements on TV, they always say, it's more fun in the Philippines. So, it is fun. It's fun because it's growing like everywhere else in Asia. It's growing so rapidly. And 25 years ago when I moved to Manila, this was a green field. And I visited this green field and I have a photo of tomatoes growing where that bank is right now. But that's our headquarters in Manila, but we're not just limited to Manila. We have offices around the world, and closest to Korea perhaps would be our Japan resident office, which is in Tokyo, but we span all the way to North America with our North American regional office, which is in Washington, and then around the world in 32 different offices, primarily concentrated within the region, of course. When we look at our key operational areas, because this ties into the types of people that we're looking for, and I believe it was in the President's opening remarks, she was talking about, you know, the types of diversity that is useful to you as students as you're going through your education. Have your mind open. Be looking for all the different types of experiences you can gain, because there's no telling when you might use those experiences or when you might be asked to use those experiences. Because when we hire somebody for the Asian Development Bank, it will be because of your technical expertise, of course, but it's also because of your capacity to learn, what we call your learning agility. Do you have the capacity to build on what your technical expertise is? Do you have the capacity to become something new? Because we know as the region is expanding and growing so quickly, we also know that the types of professionals we need change very rapidly now. And so while you may come into the bank as a water specialist, if you have that capacity to grow into some of the other priority sectors within the organization over the course of your career at the bank, that works in your favor. So by all means, have your mind open to grasp all of the experiences you can, because you never know when you might have to put those experiences together to come up with new ideas or seeing problems in a new way. But overall, our 5 priority sectors that we operate in, and most of all, it would be infrastructure, roads, bridges, dams. Environment is a huge concern for us, the whole concept of climate change and livable cities. Regional cooperation and integration. When we start to think about disease, when we start to think about cross-border roads, we realize that regional integration and cooperation is indeed very critical, because we no longer really live in an isolated world. We're global, we're connected. Financial sector development, of course, is a primary goal of any bank, but to develop the financial sector in our member countries, of course, is critical to give them that capacity. And then finally, education is a priority sector of ours. Now, when we look at those 5 priority sectors, if you can think of them going vertically, we also have some cross-cutting themes, which we call drivers of change. And we think of these drivers of change working horizontally through each of our priority sectors. And so we look at private sector development. How can we build up the private sector? Good governance, capacity development, gender equity, knowledge. It's interesting how many of our borrowers come to us today, and it's not our money they want necessarily. It's the knowledge, it's the best practices. And so our knowledge solutions we are finding to be a continuing and increasing part of our role in the region, to provide knowledge and also to develop those partnerships, to collaborate, work on development in the region. Just on knowledge, it's interesting. I enjoyed listening so much to the opening presentation from my African Development Bank colleague, and I know that will be true for all of the presentations that follow. But what we're having here now is actually a knowledge sharing exercise. And so we can all find out about what each other are doing in their various regions. But the idea of knowledge sharing, I think, is so incredibly important now, because again, we don't work in isolated communities or isolated environments any longer. The types of people we're looking for. Now, I'm looking across the audience here, and I see a lot of participants that are indeed suitable for our Young Professionals program and perhaps our internship program. So those opportunities are there for you. And in fact, our Young Professional intake will start in January. And so if you are interested in the ADB and you haven't explored our Young Professional opportunities, by all means, please do go out to our website and have a look at the Young Professionals program, because intake or applications will start in January. Now, if you're beyond the age of the Young Professional group, which is 32 years old, if you're a mid-career professional or wherever you stand in your career, what we look for, of course, is expertise and learning agility, as I spoke about earlier. But we also look for about 5 to 8 years of professional experience. We typically look for a postgraduate degree, and Shaning will go into that more in depth this afternoon in the other session, but about 20% of our staff are PhD or post-PhD. About 30 of our staff have masters, and so there's typically a desire to have staff with a postgraduate degree. And so if you're working on a master's, then by all means, keep going. We do have a number of staff with only bachelor's degree, but they have an incredible amount of experience working in their sector. The ability to communicate, to express ideas and communicate effectively, and of course, international experience. If you can achieve some international experience prior to applying for the Young Professionals program at some point, then of course that will greatly help you in your candidacy. And just beyond these types of things that we look for, I'd like to also mention the core competencies we value at the bank. There's 6 of them, again, starting with technical expertise, but also the ability to work together effectively. We're a very, very diverse environment there at ADB. We have 61 nationalities represented under that roof. And so cultural sensitivity and the ability to work together is critical to what we do. The ability to orient well with clients, client orientation. The ability to achieve results and solve problems, which gets into the idea of the ability to work in a very ambiguous environment sometimes. And so working together, client orientation, achieving results. As part of achieving results, a 4th competency we look for is the ability to innovate, to bring about change. How are you going to streamline processes or make something better, saving cost or increasing value, innovation? We also look at the ability to share knowledge, and to not only share knowledge, but to continue learning, having that lifelong love of learning, I guess, is the way we look at it. And then lastly, we would have, knowledge and learning, innovation and change, working together, client orientation, achieving results and problem solving, and technical expertise. That's all 6 of them, I believe. To wrap up, again, if you're not going to have the opportunity to visit with Shenning and I this afternoon, then by all means you may wish to take note of the various ways that you can get in touch with us. The ADB homepage, adb.org. You can always email us to find information, and we're also very present on LinkedIn. You can follow our discussions there on LinkedIn as well. Thank you so much for your time this morning, and enjoy the conference. We're very happy to be here with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Well, I'd like to start by saying thank you for inviting us to this prestigious event again this year. I had the pleasure of attending last year, and it was a super event. We hosted a similar presentation and met with some fantastic candidates both in the afternoon and the following day as well. It's an important event for us in promoting the EBRD within Korea. And I'm joined by 2 colleagues today. My colleague Melanie, who works alongside myself as an associate manager in HR. We predominantly look after the recruitment for the EBRD. And I'm also here with one of my colleagues, Jae-jin. Now, Jae-jin attended this event in 2010 and has been with the EBRD for 4 years since that event. So for anyone who is going to be joining us this afternoon for our more in-depth presentation, Jae-jin will explain more about her career that she's enjoyed with us in the past 4 years, and some of the offices that she's worked in and some of the experiences that she's had. So I hope some of you are able to join us for that session this afternoon. I know from my previous counterpart that the buttons actually are in the opposite direction now, so thank you for that. So who are the EBRD? The EBRD was established to build a new post-Cold War era in Central and Eastern Europe. And it's since played a historic role and gained unique expertise in fostering change in the region and beyond. We're headquartered in London. Maybe we should include a photo of our head office, as our other colleagues have. It's quite an impressive building in London, although maybe not such a glamorous location as some of the others. But we're in central London, and it's a very good location. So we have staff both in our headquarters and also some of our regional offices, which we'll explain more about later. We opened for business with our headquarters in 1991. And in the early years, the emphasis we put on the private sector as the main motor for change in Central and Eastern Europe was vindicated many times over. This was the period that established the EBRD's reputation as an expert on transition to the open market, and the experience we gained then has stood us in good stead when we've expanded the original region of operations into new countries such as the CEMED region. So something just to mention there, our common operating language is English, which is just as well for someone who's not a linguist herself. Historically, Russian was an important language for our staff, but increasingly French and Arabic, as we've moved into the CEMED region, are useful languages for us. But as I said, English is our common operating language. We're owned by 65 countries, and we serve the interest of all our shareholders. So that's those 65 countries, plus the European Union and the European Investment Bank. So we help, through our investments, the EBRD promotes economic growth, entrepreneurship, competition and privatisation, stronger financial institutions, and also we help with the legal reform in our countries as well, infrastructure development, adoption of strong corporate governance, and structural and sectorial reforms. And uniquely for a development bank, the EBRD has a political mandate in that it only insists in those countries committed to applying the principles of multi-party democracy and pluralism. So where are we? Handy to show a map so you can gain a better understanding of our region. So as I said, historically we were in predominantly Central and Eastern Europe, and recently we've moved into the CEMED countries of Egypt, Jordan, Morocco and Tunisia as well. And something that you can see, albeit maybe in small writing on here, but hopefully you can read in more detail in the information that you have in your programme book, is that we don't, there's a finite period to our help with countries. So far, the Czech Republic is the only member country to have what we term graduated from the EBRD. So that's a country that no longer receives investment from the bank. I'm going to hand over to my colleague Mel now, who's going to explain a little bit more about our operations and a bit more about our people.
Good morning. Okay, so we arrange our business lines and our team structure by a matrix of geographical region and industry sector. So you can see the regions on the right, and as Fiona showed in a previous slide, the regions are quite broad, spanning 3 continents. And we've also seen a shift from our London headquarters, where we obviously don't have actual operations there, to move more employees out to the regions. So we formed 3 hubs in Istanbul, Kiev and Moscow. So can everyone hear me okay? So yeah, we've formed 3 hubs in Istanbul, Kiev and Moscow. Our banking teams cover all business sectors and are loosely arranged under the headings that you see there on the left. You can also, we'll talk in much more detail about our sectors later on, but I just wanted to add that we've recently added the Small Business Initiative. That's a kind of consolidation of all the work that the bank has been doing across the different areas to support SMEs. So you'll hear the terms transition, impact and additionality quite often around the EBRD. The transition being the one that you hear the most, they must promote transition in each project, and without it, the project won't be signed off. Additionality means that within the area of operation, we won't compete with commercial banks. If a commercial bank is able and willing to compete to work on the project, then we'll leave it over to them. Finally, we must make sure that all of our projects are sustainable, and that's not just environmentally sustainable, but as some of our other development banks have mentioned, it must also be socially sustainable, and there's a particular emphasis on gender in some of those projects across the different areas. Okay, I'm not going to talk too much about business volume in each region. As I said, we'll talk about it more later on. But I did just want to say that within each region, then the sector split will the sector split will look very different in each region. So we might have more specialism in agri in certain regions compared to other ones. And finally, our people, that's what we're here today to talk most about, and we'll be talking a lot more detail about that later, but we have over 2,000 staff with a very wide range of skills, and we're always looking to increase those skills and competencies within our different regions. And as I said, we're trying to promote internal mobility and promote travel to the different countries of operation. I just wanted to also add here that we're looking for different roles within the organisation. We're looking to recruit different roles, and in particular the internships. So there's more information about how to apply for those in our brochure. So we're hoping to see you this afternoon to discuss those opportunities and our business more later on. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this event, the Ministry of Strategy and Finance, for your university. I'm very happy to be here. I have a little bit of jet lag, so I have to apologize for that. I'm very excited also because next year IDB will be hosting its annual meeting in Busan. So that really shows our commitment and how we want to continue fostering this relationship with your country. Okay, so I know the drill now. I don't have a picture of IDB, sorry. You put us in a bad spot now. How many of you have heard of the Inter-American Development Bank? Please. Wow, I'm surprised. No, I'm very, very happy. That means that we have been here quite often in the past career fairs trying to engage all of you with our institution. So I'm really very excited to see all of these hands up. And the ones who have not raised your hand, I hope that after this presentation, you're more interested in IDB, and at least you will Google us, even if you don't attend the presentation at 2 o'clock. IDB was founded in 1959. We've been in the region for a little bit over 50 years. Our mission is really to enhance the economic and the social development of our countries in Latin America and the English-speaking Caribbean. We have 40% of our staff located in the operational countries, that is to say, in the borrowing member countries. And the rest are practically located all in Washington, D.C., and some in our office in Europe, and particularly it's in Madrid. We opened it a couple of years ago, and the rest in the office in Tokyo. That is our Asia office that houses the business with China, Korea, and Japan. We operate through loans, through public sector loans and private sector loans and grants. And that is, when we talk about operation, we are referring to the borrowing member countries. And those are the 26 member countries where we have where we have offices there. We've had these offices from the very inception of IDB. From 1959, we started opening all of these offices. And the most recent ones were as I said, in Europe and Asia. But we've been present in the field since our creation. IDB has 3 entities. Each of these entities has its own window, whether of the window of business to work with bank and governments, SMEs, small and medium enterprises, and also the private sector development. All of these 3 entities are headquartered in Washington, D.C., except for those offices that I mentioned to you. Now, what are the flagships of the bank? Really, we do a lot of work in social sectors, a lot of work in infrastructure. We build schools, build roads, we expand water and sanitation services to our people in the region. We connect communities to the power grid. So as we have financed wind farms. And these are some of the numbers that you can see of the impact that we have been having in the region. And one of them that we are all very proud of lately in the past years is our impact in Haiti. After the earthquake in January of 2010, we have been building over 800 temporary classrooms in Haiti. And our impact in that country has been huge. We have I would say the biggest presence in Haiti right now. We tripled the size of our office after the earthquake. So we have task forces still working there at full speed on the ground. We are owned by 48 member countries. We have 26 borrowing member countries, and the other 22 are non-borrowers. Those are the donor countries. Among the donor countries, we have Israel and Japan, Korea, and China in Asia. But most of them are from Europe, most of the donors. I think that the letters are very small there, but I'm pretty sure that all of you who are young can really read this. I cannot. Okay. You have that. I think you have the presentation, so then that. So let me talk a little bit, and this is going to be in a nutshell, because some of you may not attend the presentation at 2 o'clock, that we are going to go in more depth, but I want to give you an idea of what kind of, the 2 types of workforce that we have at IDB. And so we have the staff members and the complementary workforce, or the contingent workforce. So under staff members, we have the programs for the YP. We have staff, what we call fixed-term contracts, that is to say, the initial contract when you join is for 3 years, and then you have the opportunity to be converted for a longer period. It's an indefinite-term contract. And we have approximately 2,000 people under the staff member category. Then in the complementary workforce, we have, I would say, 3,000 right now. And we have the internship programs, we have research fellows, and the contractuals. Some of the programs that we have, and these are some of the programs that you might be very interested in. So we have for staff positions, the YP program, and as my colleague from the African Development Bank was saying, I'm pretty sure seeing all of you, many of you may qualify for these programs. That's why I decided also to put this slide up there. So for YP programs are staff positions. You need to be 32 years old or of age or a little bit younger. But the caveat here is that you need to speak English and Spanish. Why Spanish? As you know, Latin America is, we work in Latin America, and that is the working language of the bank. So for this program, you need to be fluent in both languages. We have 4 official languages at the bank: English, Spanish, French, and Portuguese. But for the YP, you need to have Spanish. Now, we also, we have a diversity initiative, and on that initiative, we're trying to encourage participants from diverse backgrounds and Afro-descendant and from indigenous communities to apply to IDB. So the ones who qualify for that program, you need to be 35 years of age or younger and just have 1 language. So, and that is really a little bit, I would say, targeted for the indigenous communities of Latin America. In the contractual positions, you have summer and winter internship programs. And of course, when it's winter in Washington, it's summer in Argentina. So we need to cater to both hemispheres. It's a seasonal program, I would say. And we also have one for diversity candidates and the research fellows. Now, all of these on the right-hand side, they require only one language, one of the official languages. So you might, if you don't speak Spanish, at least don't be disappointed. There's always another way around to join IDB. And look at the column also on the right. So that means you can still go to the presentation at 2 o'clock. Remember that, that you have here also programs with one language. There are some conditions, as you can see there. We will go a little bit more in depth in the afternoon, but at least it is a quick snapshot for you to understand how we hire. Now, most of the backgrounds that we look for staff positions at the bank are for economists, engineers, social scientists, and of course they need to have the 2 languages. And one thing that it is important to mention is that the 50% of the people that we enlist, that we recruit at IDB were former consultants. So it is a very important source of recruitment for us. I would say in the past, actually, 3 or 4 years, it was 56% of people who were consultants and then joined IDB as staff. But most of these positions, of course, will require the 2 languages. All the positions are competitive. Everything is open to competitive processes. That is the way we hire at IDB. We announce our vacancies, but you have to go through a competition. And they are all quite rigorous, I have to admit. Now, I wanted to share this with you because how to stand out a little bit. When you apply to IDB, to any of these positions, I would say this is a 2-way street. We will interview, but make sure that you also interview us. It's not only one-sided. Do research on the jobs that you're applying to. Check our websites. Research all of us in LinkedIn. Google us. Write good CVs. Write a good cover letter. Don't have just one CV for all the organizations here today. Make sure that you customize it, that you tailor your CV to each of us. And the other day I was reading a CV just before coming here, and someone wrote, "Oh, I'm very honored to apply to the World Bank." And I was like, whoop. So that's why have a third-party proofread your CV. Make sure that you apply to the right organization and just don't send them like that. It was a little bit funny. If you access our website in careers at IDB, you will see, this is more or less what you will see on the website, how to apply. You can enter into any of these links and then apply. And the terms of reference are very, very specific on each of them. You can still create your own profiles on the website and just indicate into the system that if you want to receive an email or some kind of information whenever we are posting something of your interest, just do it. And the system is very user-friendly. So it should be very easy for you to apply. Well, of course, compensation package is very good. We have excellent, the compensation package is very generous. We have excellent benefits. And we offer very good work-life balance arrangements. We are aware that for the new workforce, it is not only about money, it's how we work, who we work with, how do we relate, how can we innovate, how can we work with people from other countries. So it's having 48 member countries with the bank. It's a very, very diverse work environment. We strive for professional excellence and the integrity of our own staff. These faces represent the future of IDB. I wish that a couple of years down the road, I can see some of your faces up there. And they're all young, as we can see. In closing, I want to say that IDB is really very committed to maintaining and recruiting from a wide geographical representation of its member countries. When we had the last general capital increase, we had a mandate to recruit 40% of women in high level and senior and executive positions. So I'm very excited to be here at your university because it's a very good start for all of us. Thank you very much. I hope to see you all later, and 고맙습니다. Thank you very much.
Good morning to all of you. I'm very pleased to be here to represent the IMF at this fair, together with my colleague, Gil Park, who is down there. So thank you for the invitation to the ministry as well as to the university. So I will try to be brief. I actually have a picture of the IMF headquarters, but I will not show it until 2 o'clock. So let's see. One on the left. So look away when I come to the front headquarters, please. Okay. There. Okay. So let's start with the most important. Who are we? So we are the International Monetary Fund. We are the staff of the International Monetary Fund. We have about 3,300 employees. About 2,700 of these are regular staff, and the other are contractors or working in our local offices. The staff is diverse. We have staff members from 150 countries, but it's not as diverse as we would like. And East Asia is an underrepresented region, although Korea is not doing too badly. I think in the sense that if you compare the quota of Korea in the International Monetary Fund, this is the money that Korea has put in. It's about 1.5%, and the staff is at 1.4%. So we're getting there, but there's room for a bit more. So basically, we have 32 Korean staff, of which almost all are economists, so 23 are economists. Most IMF staff work at headquarters in Washington, D.C., but we do have several, we call resident representative offices in individual countries. Mainly these are countries where we actually lend, where we have programs, but also some large emerging markets where we don't have programs. We follow Russia, India, China, and so on. We have about 80 offices like this that are staffed by fund headquarters staff. Then we have 2 regional offices. We have one in Paris that was established in 1947. France was the first country to borrow from the IMF. You may not know this is old history, but that's how it was. And we established the office, and it's still there. It's the regional office for Europe at this point. We're in the process of moving it to Brussels. And then we have my office, which is in Tokyo. It's the regional office for Asia and the Pacific. And we basically, well, as the name says, we cover the 34 countries in the Asia and Pacific region, together, of course, with our headquarters colleagues. So what do we do? Well, the IMF was set up after the Second World War to prevent or to cooperate or to prevent crisis. I think it was established in the wake of the Great Recession or the Great Depression. And it was set up to promote economic cooperation based on that experience that showed very clearly that things could go really badly wrong if countries did not work together. And our Article 1 of the so-called Articles of Agreement defines our objective as being to support stable economic growth. And of course to avoid a repetition of what happened in the 20s. We have gone from 29 member countries in 1947 when we were established, 288 member countries today. So the IMF is a truly global organization. Almost all countries in the world, with a few exceptions, are members of the IMF. Now, it's been said that the IMF is the least understood and most criticized of the international organizations. So let me try to explain what we do. So basically, we do 3 or maybe 4 things. I think I needed 4 because it's a square, so I needed to add a 4th one. But the first thing we do, and so what do I do now? So we have technical skills at the IMF, as you can see. Okay, so the first thing we do, we like to say, is our firefighter role, is we provide financial support to countries in support of their economic adjustment programs. This is perhaps the most well-known role of the IMF, certainly here in Korea, for better or worse, I think one should say. We have different lending facilities for different countries and circumstances, and these are changing over time. We are changing it. We have been changing a lot in the wake of the Asia crisis in the late 90s, learning lessons from what went wrong and what went right at that time, and also in light of the crisis that we are just coming out of, hopefully. So basically, we're changing the way we operate, trying to draw lessons, less conditionality, more financing, more crisis prevention. The second thing we do is, being a family doctor, I suppose, we call surveillance. This is essentially economic analysis and policy advice. Every country, every member country of the IMF, this is one of the few obligations of being an IMF member country, is subjected to an annual, you can call a health check. In the language, we call it the Article 4 consultation. Maybe a few of you have heard about this. We carry this out with every one of the 188 member countries every year. So it's an assessment of the economic situation, of the economic challenges, and we give economic advice. We also do this not just on the bilateral level, but also at the global level. You may have seen some of our publications. We have perhaps most well-known, the World Economic Outlook, which we publish full-fledged version every 6 months. But we also have other more general publications like this. Another important role is to act as, of surveillance is to act as a sort of a crisis preventer, in the sense that we're trying to identify vulnerabilities and problems in an economy in order to alert country authorities to possible problems that could lead to crisis, and we give advice about policies that the countries might want to take in order to reduce the risk of facing a crisis. The third thing we do is, now we're a coach, is capacity building. This is capacity building for economic policy implementation. The basic idea is that sound economic policies are built on sound institutional basis. And what we do here with this in mind is that we help countries develop their own capacity in many areas of economic policy making: tax administration, tax policy, public financial management, monetary policy, supervision of the financial sector, economic statistics, and so on and so forth. Very wide range. And this is all aimed to help countries build the institutions that are needed for sound economic policies. This is perhaps the least known, but I would argue that the most valuable thing that we do. But it's below the radar screen, I think, for most people. Then there's also the reform of the international financial system. I will not go into this. This is a process that's going way too slow, but we are involved in that as well. So putting all this together, working at the IMF will involve working in any of these areas, or you could work in all of them. If you stay for a while, economy staff tend to move around in the fund, and you can actually work on many different issues and many countries, especially if you stay for a long time. Now, let's see. So why choose the IMF? Why should you join? I think this is from our propaganda division, but I actually happen to agree. I think when you put together the brand, the work content, the possibility to move around and gain very different experiences, interesting ones, and also the intellectually stimulating environment, I think these are all very good reasons to join the IMF. And if you're then convinced, next question is, how can you join? And I think we'll talk a bit more about this in the afternoon. But just very briefly, in terms of qualifications, in terms of the options, you see it here. We have, to be honest, mainly economists, macroeconomists, PhD macroeconomists. I think we are the largest collection of macroeconomists, PhD macroeconomists in the world. I don't know if that's a matter of pride, should be a matter of pride or not, but that's how it is. But we have economists with different backgrounds, and we also do hire other professions. So I will go over this in more detail at 2 o'clock and answer any questions, and Sir Bill, of course, will be there with me. But let me just very quickly run through the slides so you have seen them. So we have the Economist program, which is similar to what we heard other organizations. I think we don't call it young professionals because you can still do it when you're 34. I guess the limit is there somewhere. But that's basically PhD economists. Then we have, we are hiring experienced economists. These could be people who don't have PhDs, but have relevant work experience for 5 to 15 years. And we have been hiring, especially since the latest crisis. This is one of the lessons, I suppose. We have been hiring more people like this because we realized that we don't have the expertise, especially in financial sector issues, in-house. We need people who have actually been in the financial sector and who have gained practical experience. Same with government, tax collectors, these kind of things. Internship program, this is summer intern in the Washington summer. We offer about 40, I think, per year. We also have, incidentally, 3 internship programs in Tokyo in my office, 2 for economists and 1 for external relations students. Then, of course, we have other career streams. We have lawyers, we have engineers, and so on and so forth. HR professionals even, although I don't count myself among those. So that's it. So thank you very much. Please join us at 2 o'clock, and we will try to answer any questions you have.
Good morning, everyone. As we said, my name is Davide. I joined many years ago the World Bank Group, actually 13 years ago. I had long, blonde, curly hair, and this is what happens after almost 14 years. I'm not implying that you're going to go through the same, but just to give you a sense. So a little bit about myself, and probably this will also give you an idea of what the World Bank Group is all about. As I said, I joined about 14 years ago in Washington. I spent the first 4 years in Washington as an HR generalist. Then I moved to South Africa as the head of HR for Africa and Western Europe. I was there for 5 years and I came back with 2 more children. I was in Washington then for 4 years, and as of July 1, 2013, I've been based in Hong Kong, and I'm going to be based there for the foreseeable future, I guess. I don't know what's next. This is just to say that the World Bank Group is really a truly global organization. I joined on the IFC side of the house, and I will be talking about that a little bit later, which is the private sector branch of the World Bank Group. I'm very technologically challenged, so I hope I'm going to get this. Okay, what's the goal of the World Bank Group? It's pretty simple. We have 2 overarching goals as of today and as of, I guess, over the last couple of years. Right? One is to eradicate poverty, and the other one is to increase shared prosperity. Just to give an idea, and to me this is always very, very enlightening, there is a whopping number up there, right? 1.2 billion people live with less than $1.25 a day. Our ambition is to bring down the percentage of people, the global population is in that category, which currently is 18% to 3%. It's a staggering goal. It's a very ambitious goal, and obviously we need the work of all the multinational and multilateral organizations to achieve that one. We're all sister organizations here, we're all trying to achieve the same goal. I will skip this one. Just like my other colleagues, a couple of numbers to indicate where we are and what we're doing. There are about 16,000 people working for the World Bank Group in the different organizations. We are spread over 160 country offices for both IBRD and IFC. Obviously, there is a large number of staff in Washington. IFC has more people outside Washington than in Washington, and the World Bank or IBRD has more people, slightly more people in Washington than in the field offices. There are about 170 nationalities. I'm Italian, as probably you can tell from my accent. There aren't many of us, by the way, in the World Bank Group. Okay, these are the organizations that constitute the World Bank Group. As I was saying, IBRD is the so-called World Bank. Is targeting middle-income countries. Then we have IDA, which is targeting the lower-income countries. IFC and MIGA are more focused on the private sector. MIGA with a special focus on insurance policies. These are our shareholders that more or less resemble also the ones of the other organization. The biggest shareholder of the World Bank is the US. We also housed, like some of the other sister organizations in Washington, DC. The second one is Japan, China, Germany, France, UK, Russia, and Saudi Arabia. We are owned by 188 countries. We have a board of governors and a residing board of directors, so the board. It's one of the very few organizations with a residing board of directors. We have a president, as you know, President Kim is from South Korea, and then management and staff. This is how we are distributing our staff. As I was saying, I'm based in Hong Kong, and I cover that 34% of our staff. Sub-Saharan African, so what Africa in any case has the largest percentage of staff in one single region, and then EAP, so us here. Okay, this slide is meant to just highlight at the macro level our new organization. And the reason why I'm saying our new organization is that as of July 1, the World Bank Group was reorganized, and now we are defined by what we call global practices, so which are 14. Okay? And these are the sectors that are outlined in the upper part of the slide. And then we also have 5 cross-cutting solutions. The reason why we are now organized in this way is that, as someone was saying before, I think what is making the difference, what is in a way going to make or break, and what is going to help us meet our goals and targets, is actually the ability of transferring knowledge, right? Unlike before, and we were organized by regional vice presidencies, basically by regions, we are now organized by knowledge sectors. So, and the ambition that we have is to be able to transfer the knowledge that we have within the World Bank Group, right, with these 16,000 people, from region to region through these buckets, you know, which range from financial markets to agriculture and so on and so forth. And the cross-cutting solutions are supposed to distribute evenly the knowledge across the whole globe. IBRD, so the World Bank has a portfolio as of last year of $31.5 billion, and you can, I hope you can read, okay, which is spread evenly across different sectors, ranging from public administration and law to communication. IFC last year, I'm sorry, I hope IFC has a slightly smaller portfolio. Again, IFC is focusing on the private sector. It's about $18 billion, ranging from trade finance to financial markets, infrastructure, down to mining. You know, and this is again not only for Asia. This is for all regions across the globe. A couple of areas of focus, just like the other organizations, a little bit fragile states. And unfortunately, there are way too many in the world. Public and private partnership, we all know that actually possibly most of the growth down the road is going to come from the private sector. However, there are areas where the coordination and cooperation between public and private sector is essential actually to deliver to all our clients. And to gender, someone else also talked about that. I mean, we find that more and more it's going to be important to provide access to opportunities to everyone. And climate change, or sustainability, as we said before. And this one, it goes also beyond climate. What we are looking for, there are different, and we're going to go through the different profiles, the different recruitment activities that we have going on in the organization at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. But if I were to summarize in a word, what we are typically looking for is the profile of what we call an integrator, someone who is able to provide the breadth and the depth of expertise in any of the technical streams that I was highlighting before, right? Ranging from agriculture to trade and competitiveness, financial markets, trade finance. I will go through the different requirements that we have in order to join the World Bank Group. But just as we were saying, as my colleagues were saying before, we also have a few paths, basically a few entry points into the World Bank Group. One is basically our flagship programs, which are two. One is the YPP, the Young Professionals at IBRD, or the GTD program at IFC, where you need basically to have an MBA or a PhD and a certain numbers of years of experience. The other one is obviously also the internship, and we have different models in IBRD and in IFC. And the third one is obviously applying also to all our vacancies. Because of the changes in the organization over the last 12 months, we have not grown as much as before, but the intent obviously now that we have in place the new organization is potentially to further expand to meet the needs of the people we are supposed to cover around the world. The next slides, I would prefer to go through all of them a little bit later in the afternoon. Thank you very much.
So now it's the turn for the OECD, and good morning. My name is Naoto Sugiura. I'm the HR coordinator in human resource management. I'm based in Paris. First of all, thank you again for the organizers as well as the participants. It's really my pleasure to be here and to welcome all the young, motivated, passionate people. Since I'm the 7th person making the presentation today, I don't want to repeat what my colleagues have already said. Instead, I'm trying to focus on the differences of what we do, which is different from other financial institutions, because what we do is pretty different from others. I'm going to focus today on 3 simple things. I'm going to talk about who we are, what we do, and how we recruit. And I'm also going to ask some help from my colleagues to click on the slides. So now we move on to who we are, and this is our office. It's very beautiful. If you can go to the next slide, please. Next. So I tried to make a sort of chronology so that you can link the evolution of our organization with what was going on in the world economy and politics. Our organization was founded in 1961, and this was the year where the Berlin Wall was constructed. And this is not a coincidence, of course. Our organization was built initially to represent the interests of what we call former Western countries. And since then, the organization has been evolving slowly but steadily until 1989, where the Berlin Wall has fallen. And this was a turning point for our organization because we were supposed to transform our raison d'être, so the reason of our existence. And the response of the OECD was that we tried since to represent the interest not for the former Western countries, but of the whole world. And one of the responses, as you can see, is that we started welcoming new member countries. Korea was one of them. It joined our organization in 1996. Another information I can add from this slide is that in 2000, we launched a study called PISA. And some of you might have heard about this. It's a global survey to compare the educational achievement of children in 15 years old. I thought that you may have heard of it because Korea has always been a top performer of this study since the beginning of the study. In 2008, there was the financial crisis that provoked, and this was the second turning point for our organization. That's because in the aftermath of the financial crisis, the role of the G20 has expanded, and the OECD has played a crucial role to support the activity of the G20, and this contributed to increase further our global presence. In 2010, we also welcomed 4 new member countries. So it's been a little bit more than 50 years that our organization was founded. In the meantime, our number of staff members has increased from 680 to more than 3,000, so 5-fold basically. And I especially want to draw your attention that the number of our staff members has increased dramatically and steadily for the last 10 years. And this is a sales point for us. Who does not want to work in an organization which is growing? So now we have 34 member countries. Next, please. So now we move on to Paris. I'm going to explain what we do. If you can move to the next slide. Thank you. So our main activity consists of 3 parts. The first part is called data collection and analysis. We ask our member countries, in particular our member countries' governments, to provide us data on their respective countries. And based on these data, we do global comparison. And then based on the results that we accumulated, we make policy advice. And by the way, this is our Secretary General. He's a former Foreign Minister of Mexico. So as you can see from these 3 previous slides, we're not a bank. We do not lend money. We do not provide financial assistance. We sell knowledge. We sell ideas. And this is a point that you should take in mind because this is the particularity, the feature of the OECD. However, it doesn't mean that our scope of activity is limited. On the contrary, we cover most of all areas of social sciences. The example is here. We have, if you can go back to the previous slide, excuse me. The previous slide. Before this and before this. Thank you. So we cover investment, trade, energy, public governance. If you can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. We, of course, do development, but we also cover employment. So this is the composition of our staff members. We have 6% of what we call executive leaderships. And these are senior managers, directors, and of course the Secretary General. And around half of our staff members are called policy experts. So these are the people who conduct the policy analysis as well as the global comparison. And these people are supported by what we call corporate management staff. So HR, finance, IT, legal, etc., etc. By the way, this is a picture of my office. There's myself as well as my 2 colleagues, Manuel and Elise. Thank you. So this graph shows where our staff comes from. And one thing which is clear from this graph is that we do not have any specific quota system, and we are very proud of this, because we can say proudly that we are a merit-based organization. But as you can see, France has its home advantage. If you look at where Korea is, there are 48 people. However, this graph includes all staff members, so officials, temporary staff, interns, everyone. If you move to the next slide, please. This graph is a similar type of graph, but just gets precise to show the composition of our staff members, especially the professionals and executive leaders. If you see in this graph, there are 32 Korean staff. I don't want to say if this number is too high or too low, but one thing which is clear is that the fact that the number of Korean staff increases is a good sign for us, since we put value in diversity of nationality. And I also want to encourage women applicants in our organization, since we do not put value only diversity in terms of nationality, but also in terms of gender. So career opportunities, and this is pretty similar to other organizations, so I try to be quick. So this is our career website. All applications must be done online as other organizations. And we also have a program to recruit young professionals, which is called Young Professionals Program. Again, pretty similar to other organizations. And there's also another similarity, that the program is pretty competitive, or I must say very competitive. If you look at last cohort's figure, we had more than 6,000 applicants, and there were only 20 people accepted. So this is really discouraging, apparently. However, I also have two good news to share with you today. First is that among these 18 people accepted last cohort, 2 of them were Koreans. And both of them were women. And they obtained a degree in Korea. And among those 18 people, the country that provided more than 2 people in the YPs, besides Korea, this was only Germany and Ireland. It's great, isn't it? So the message that I want to deliver from this is that don't be afraid. You don't have to be a native speaker. You don't have to have done Harvard or Oxford. If you meet the right qualification, you have the eligibility, you have the experience, you still have a good chance to get selected. The second good news that I have is that now it's open for application. So if you are interested, please go to our website and visit if there's any vacancies that matches your skills and competencies. Please. We also have an internship program, which is conducted twice a year in summer and winter. Again, the internship program is currently open for application until mid-March, the winter program. However, I strongly encourage you to apply as soon as possible, because this program, again, is pretty competitive, and the earlier you apply, the better chance you have to get selected. So how we recruit, and this is again pretty similar to other organizations. So you have to do your application, which must be made online, as I said. Then you go to the screening process, and then you have to do the written test. It happens. And then there's the final interview. The final interview is usually conducted in Paris headquarters, but this can be done via Skype depending on the applicant's location. You can see that this person is really struggling, but was very lucky to get an offer. So the process typically takes 4 to 6 months. Now I am almost at the end of the presentation. If you are interested, you can have further information about the OECD on our website, like this, as well as on tablets and on smartphones. I should have designed a Samsung Galaxy, but I apologize for this. So now it's the end of my presentation. Thank you very much, and I very much look forward to working with you to realize our mission together, which is better policies for better lives. Thank you very much.
Good morning, but I just realized it's actually good afternoon. I'm very happy to be here. It's my privilege to present to you today. I'm coming from the Green Climate Fund. And first of all, I want to say thank you to the Ministry of Strategy and Finance and to the EVA Women's University for hosting this wonderful event. So, the Green Climate Fund. How many of you have heard of GCF? Raise your hands. Yeah, pretty good, good. I had, actually, to be honest, I had not heard of this organization in January when I got an email from a headhunter, executive search, saying, okay, they're looking for a person to head the human resources for this newly established organization in Songdo in South Korea. I was like, what? Songdo? I didn't know. I happened to be with my dad's and mom's place off the coast of Africa, a small island where they were located at the time. So we were there sitting and we were looking out at the sea, you know, and then I said, okay, what is this? And then my dad, he'd seen a documentary about Songdo, and he said, Ulrika, don't you know, this is a fantastic place, you know, and this Green Climate Fund, there's also a good opportunity. But I was like, oh, I live in South America, I'm quite happy in Peru, been there for over 3 years, I had another 3 years of my current contracts, why would I leave? But then I started to research a bit more about it. What's this organization all about? Well, it's to save the world, right? From the bad effects of climate change. So then I thought more about it, and I thought, well, why don't I go to South Korea? And I've actually lived in India for 7 years before that. So I've been in New Delhi. So I kind of, Asia was fine. I knew that this would be very, very modern Asia compared to India, which, you know, for sure it is. Okay, so, now I see. Okay, so the Green Climate Fund. It's a financial mechanism of the convention, UNFCCC, established in 2010. However, it only went operational this year. We had our executive director, Hela Shukruhu, who joined end of last year, and she moved here in January. But staff, and then we had consultants working to kind of establish the whole office and the whole organization. And we only had people joining through an executive search beginning, well, in July this year. And I joined towards the end of August. So even though I'm responsible for human resources, I was not involved in the first 23 people that joined, international staff, right? So we are really the new kids on the block. So we saw the years, this organization that we heard before joining starting in 1960s, 70s, you know, a long time ago, and having thousands and thousands of employees. And we have right now, well, not even 30, yeah? But if I do the same presentation in 5 years, I may have 1,000 employees too, and billions of dollars that's been dispersed for the developing countries. But now we're in 2014. So what else can I tell you? We have 194 countries. I think that's more than any of the other organizations I presented before. So that's impressive. It's a good start. So these are the signatories to the UNFCCC. We also have 24 board members, and they are equally distributed from developing and developed countries. And I think that makes us a bit special as well. And what are we doing? So our mandate is to promote low emission and climate resilient development in developing countries. So it's basically to receive money from developed countries and channel that to the developing countries. Very simple, but probably going to be quite difficult. So we need energetic, passionate people, and that's why I'm here today. Okay, so it challenged all nations. So what do we have here? Because you wonder, what's all this about? And I think it's good to kind of show this on pictures. So it's really the agriculture and food will be affected. Rising temperatures cause change in vegetation and harvest patterns. We have water supplies and drought. Heat trapping gas emission leads to increase of drought and reduced water supplies. Sea level, marine life will also be affected. Rise of sea level due to melting Arctic, extinction of species result from changing ecosystems, natural disasters, political conflicts, and economic loss. Mission of the fund. Under the UNFCCC, heads of state of developing countries committed to jointly mobilize funds to advance the global paradigm shift towards low emission and climate resilient development pathways. And this is some figures what we need. We haven't got this yet, but this is kind of very big figures. But I want to talk a little bit about voluntary contribution from developed countries. We will also welcome public and private contributions, and also alternative sources, taxes, carbon credits. So we're looking at different ideas now to receive funds. And what do we have so far? Germany, 1 billion, and you can see the numbers here. So it's 2.9 billion, and that's just in a few, well, basically weeks. So we're moving quite fast here. We were hoping for 10 billion by the end of this year. Not sure if that will happen, but you can see that there's some big donors that haven't shown their commitment yet. I'm from Sweden myself, and Sweden contributed 500 million US dollars. And considering that we only have 9 million people in my country, it's pretty good. Yeah? So you can do your calculation of 50 million in this country and 50 million in Japan, and so we have Japan, we're waiting for Japan. South Korea has already committed, but Japan has not, and the States has not, and so forth. So, okay. So everyone has a responsibility, that the German, Angela Merkel, Chancellor of Germany, said. Okay. So who are the beneficiaries then? Developing countries with priority to the least developed countries, and small island developing states, and the African nations. This is really our focus. The balance between mitigation and adaptation. And access to resources can be obtained through national, regional, and international entities, country-driven approach through designated national authorities, and project-based approach. Standard accountability mechanism, fiduciary standards, and safeguards. So, we are headed by a woman. And I think, if I wasn't mistaken, looking through the presentations before, the previous 7, they were all men. Am I right? No? Okay, sorry about that. Christine, yes, that's right. Yeah. Very good. So, with the second one, okay, 2 out of 8. So, Hela Shekroho from Tunisia. So she was selected in June 2013, but she only started working in the end of 2013. So we are tiny. We have 20 international professional staff, we have 10 administrative local staff, and 45 consultants. And we have approved for another 26 positions, and I'm going to talk more about that. 5 of those 26 positions are actually for associate professionals, which are young, with 3 years of experience. So this may be interesting for some people here in the audience. And we will expand over time, of course. Okay, so this is what we look like currently, but I'll show you, okay. I just realized, because we were trying to get another slide, and I just realized now that other slide didn't come, showing more in detail where the 26 positions are, but I will do that in my session at 2 o'clock, okay? So Songdo is the headquarters, and as you can see, that's our building to the left, and that's a view from our office to the right. And so it was a selection. So some people say, why Songdo? How come you ended up there? Well, it was an international bid, as usually, and a lot of countries in the world thought that they really wanted to head this new organization. And the selection at the end was 5 countries. It was Germany, Korea, Mexico, Namibia, and Poland. And at the end, with a huge competition, as it should be in these situations, Korea got the bid and was selected. And I would say, from my personal point of view, now when I've been here for a few months, I am very happy about that, because I'm very happy to be in Korea. It's a great place. Songdo is wonderful. Working environment is very good. We do not have work-life balance, though. Yeah, that's something we aim for the future. But right now, we are understaffed and overworked. Yeah. But and that's nothing I'm proud of. I mean, I think we need to change that, because we want people to last. It's really, really important. We have people, they will join, but they need to stay as well and be happy there. So we need to have a balance. So I don't promote the whole overworking and understaffed philosophies. I just want to say that. Okay, So why did we do the Green City Songdo? So designated as a sustainable city with more than 40% of its area reserved for green space, and that's something I personally and a lot of people really appreciate. It's urban planning, incorporated latest design standards, technologies that reduce energy consumption, increase energy efficiency. And I think that was really a strong selling point when the country was selected and Songdo as the location. So what are we looking for? Well, we're looking for basically the same people as my previous presenters discussed. So well, we would like core competency, professionalism, teamwork, communication, planning, organizing, analytical thinking, loyalty, impartiality, ethical high grounds, leadership, self-motivated, and I think this is really important, proactive, innovative, uses resources effectively, and that's very important too, because we want to live as we learn. We learn as we live. We want to really be part of the organization, that everyone follows what we're supposed to do as an organization, but also as individuals, okay? We're looking for interns, we're looking for seconded staff, we're looking for consultants, administrative staff, and international staff. And of course, there are lots of different jobs. We're now going to, well, almost double ourselves in the next few months. So principle, position will be classified at appropriate level, open and transparent process, equity, geographical distribution, gender balance, based on competence and qualifications. And what we're really looking for here is that we want diversity. Diversity in gender, as in where people come from. So this is so on the GCF fund on our website, you'll find the vacancies, you'll find all the official documents, and we are actually a secretariat. So the Green Climate Fund is a secretariat to the board, and the board meets regularly every 3-4 months. So what we do is a lot right now. We're not so operational. We're preparing documents for the board to approve, because we're a startup. We don't have any process, no procedures, no nothing. Right? I mean, now last board meeting we managed to get a lot through in the previous ones, but there's so much more to be done. So it's a lot of work now just to set up the foundation of this new organization. Okay, but you can find all the information on the website, so it's very, very transparent. So, thank you.